Good morning, and welcome to the Live at the Waterhole show. My name is Steph Winterbourg, and I'm going to be with you for the next 3 fantastic hours. And let's just hope that the departing bottoms of those zebra aren't a prophecy of what's to come this morning. We were all just drinking here a couple of minutes ago and have now moved off. But if Aldonia has anything to, if historically speaking, Aldonia is anything to go by, we will see a new group of animals pulling in here really soon. In fact, there in the back, I can see some zebra already moving. So, what have we got to expect for today? Well, weather-wise, we've got a lot of different types of weather all over the place. We actually had a little bit of rain last night here in the Kruger National Park where I'm at. And you can see that in Kenya, we've got some clouds. This African Aldonia cam feed is facing south into Tanzania. And in fact, we can see the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro there in the background. You can see that rocky prominence coming through the clouds. And that's just testimony to how clear the air is at the moment. Can't see the glacier on top. It's still shrouded in some cloud. But that is the tallest freestanding mountain in the world. And situated it's in Tanzania, but we're looking from Kenya toward that mountain at the moment. Roughly about 200 kilometers south of the equator. So we're much closer to the equator here where Aldonia is. And it doesn't look like it's rained at all there in actual fact. Usually the clouds build up in the afternoons for some late afternoon showers. For those of you who have been with WildEarth for many, many years, you would have known that from when we used to have camera feeds up in Kenya in the Mara Triangle. Often we were rained out and our naturalists had to sit in the car and just weather the storm. But we've got a summary of the weather for the next couple of hours. Why don't we go and have a look at it? There we go. Some buffalo and some impala to have a look at. So you got a brief glimpse of the weather that's expected at the different locations there. And as you can see, sort of high 90s, mid 30s degrees Celsius. Some of them topping out above 100 today. Others, somewhere around the 20s. So nice variety. In Madikwe, it is still very hot at the moment and very dry. And that's where we're at the moment. We're at the Jamala Cam, a pan that sees a fair amount of activity, to be honest with you, and has a very deep, muddy pool at its center. Yesterday, we watched a kudu struggle to jump through the water. I don't think these buffalo will have much of a problem at all. These are Cape buffalo, as opposed to the water buffalo that we find in India and are part of the Big Five. Now, Modo, you've sent your first comment through this morning. And so good morning back to you. And I'm also looking forward to this. Absolutely. That does remind me, though, to let you know if this is one of the first times that you're watching the show, it is an interactive show. So Modo asked me or sent through his comment this morning by having registered on the WildEarth website and then just following the prompts through there. And you can also send through your comments and your questions. You can send through anything that you've observed or that you know about. And we'd love to hear from you. So please definitely do go and do that. It'll be a long show if all I'm doing is speaking to myself. It'll be really cool to hear from you. And then it is live. So what we're looking at here is not recorded in any way. This is what's happening right now at the Jamala webcam on the 26th of September at 9:35 in the morning. We're watching this small herd of buffalo that has come down to the water to come and have a drink. Won't stay for very long. They're not like warthog or elephant or waterbuck in that Herds of buffalo like this tend to keep on moving quite a lot. You do find old bull buffalo. We call them Daga boys. That means that they enjoy sitting in mud. And you do find them frequenting water holes during the heat of the day where they come and lie up in the mud. But this is not one of those herds. We've got a blacksmith lapwing in the middle of the mud as well. So for those of you keen birders out there keeping bird lists, we have these birds. They're quite common at most of the water that we have. You can see this. A few more buffalo this morning. We've got a little bit of a gremlin that's crept into the camera and it's stopping us from moving the camera left. You know, we do bring you these feeds from some of the most remote places on Earth. And every now and again, we must mark a plan, as they say. You can see it. A little bit jerky, but it's okay. We're going to get there. And you can see that it is a fairly large herd of buffalo, actually. Definitely not a small herd. You're looking at anywhere sort of... Buffalo herds vary in size depending on the area that they live in. So the more abundant, good quality grass is, and the less broken up the terrain, the larger the herd size of buffalo get. And in some places, you're looking at buffalo herds up to 1,000 animals. In most cases, you're looking at anywhere from about 150 to about 400 buffalo. And so what we're seeing here is probably close on about 150, 200. So a herd of buffalo, but not that big. It's rare to find herds of buffalo up to 1,000. This herd will be made up of bulls, full-grown bulls, and full-grown females. The females and immature bulls and calves will be further segregated into family groups, and the males will have a hierarchy within the herd once they become mature. So young bull buffalo will obviously be at the bottom of the hierarchy. Older bull buffalo will be at the top of the hierarchy, and they will fight one another for mating rights within the herd. Then there will be pathfinders, which will be, I'm going to say elected in inverted commas, because pathfinders are born pathfinders, and each family will have a pathfinder. And in the beginning of the morning, when the buffalo decide where they're going to go, the pathfinders from the various families will stand up and face in a direction. And of course, by democratic vote, the direction for the day is picked by the most pathfinders pointing in that particular direction. And of course, the bigger families will have the most pathfinders and will be the healthiest members in the family, and so we'll choose where the herd goes for that day. It's like a democracy, a very complicated political democracy, but one nonetheless.
Do you want to touch the lives of future protectors of our Earth? Thanks to our wonderful WildEarth explorers, WildEarth Kids is back. Sign your class up for WildEarth schools and enjoy a special virtual field trip to Africa with interactive learning tailored for kids.
Very warm welcome to the kids from WildEarth Primary School.
We'll be dedicating the first hour of sunset safaris every Wednesday to our planet's future defenders. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
So impressive to see a buffalo herd like that. I mean, you're looking at hundreds, if not thousands, of tons of animal moving out in a very quick fashion. And each of those buffalo carry tens of thousands of flies around them. And when they run away like that, they leave their flies behind. And I tell you, it is one of the most overwhelming sensations on earth to be behind a buffalo herd that stampedes away and you're left in the wake of flies. It's crazy. Anyway, a little bit more on that in a bit, but it is WildEarth's mission to reconnect people with nature. One of the ways that we do that for you guys is through your donations. So if you feel like you'd like to leave us a donation, please visit our website, click on the donate tab, and pledge your support that way. It would be really much, much appreciated. See, that zebra struggled a little bit on that slippery bank as the buffalo left. They dragged water up out of the pan and onto the bank, which is making it slippery for hard-hoofed animals. They're going to be a little bit skittish to come down a steep bank like that to drink. Nevertheless, doing it spectacularly. And just like that, the buffalo, all of them, decided to move off into the distance. They will go and spend the rest of the morning feeding. Like I was saying a little bit earlier, buffalo herds are often trailed by lion. I was lucky enough to witness a group of young male lions, four or five of them, um, and they followed a herd of buffalo around for a whole year, and they learned how to really get these buffalo going. So what they used to do was just trail the buffalo during the day, wait for the buffalo to corral up, and then as soon as the sun had set, when it had been down for an hour or so, they'd start to rush out of the darkness and rush at the buffalo, who would, stoically sort of endure initially, but as the pressure increased and these lions would draw, the buffalo get more and more agitated. And eventually, what would happen is one buffalo would break under the pressure and they'd run away, and inevitably, one of the calves would be caught. And these lions managed to, over the course of a year, eat every single baby buffalo that herd had. There wasn't a single calf that was younger than a year left over. It was the most amazing thing. Right. The beauty of the Live at the Waterhole show is that we have many cameras to look at. And so why don't we go and have a look at Cat Eye Pan. Ah, there we go. There's our terrapin friend. I wonder if it's the same one. He looks a little bit smaller than our friend. So this is Cat Eye Pan. We're in the Greater Kruger National Park now, as opposed to Madikwe where we were. It's about 1,000 kilometers. And we shifted, plus minus. It's there or thereabouts. And we're quite close to Mozambican border here. And what we've seen over the last couple of weeks is that this pan has some terrapins in it. That's a freshwater turtle. If you're looking at there now, if you don't understand what a terrapin is, like a marine turtle, only in fresh water. And this particular pan has a turtle that likes to, or terrapin that likes to climb out onto this beach and sun itself. And this may or may not be it. We've only recently sort of come to know our terrapin friend as a character on the show. And this one looks a bit smaller than the other one. See if you could recognize any sort of defining characteristic other than shape. It would be great to get to know the animals that live at these pans, because we essentially living at these pans ourselves. And you've got to get to know your neighbors. So what this terrapin's doing is it's showing the most of its body to the sun that it can to pick up the majority of the sun's rays in an effort to warm itself up. They're cold-blooded and so need the environment to help them manage their metabolism. And so he would have come out. You can see there's a whole lot of weeds that he's dragged out of the water with him. He's now sunning himself on the beach, keeping a wary eye open for any disturbance. Helena, you've said what a beautiful sight, and he is actually quite nice, to be honest with you. I will call him. I don't know if I would call him beautiful, but as we've quite often said, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And what I find appealing or what you find appealing are two totally different things, and really okay. There's nothing wrong with it. Yesterday we had a whole bunch of elephant spending some time at this pan, as well as some vultures that came down. And I still can't get over what we saw. We saw a vulture with a tag. The tag on its wing said A360. We had one of our viewers, Brian Gold, go and have a look at what is the history of this particular vulture on a website. And he came back and said it's one of the most well-traveled vultures ever recorded. This particular female white-backed vulture had been spotted in over 14 countries in Africa, all the way from the Sahara through to the Congo jungles and then down to South Africa. 14 countries. And it traveled over 2 million kilometers since its tracker had been attached. I mean, I'm still actually astounded at that. And that was at this pan. So we've had some feedback from our Zoomy, which operates the camera here, and what better person to give us some feedback than them, and confirm there's one large terrapin and several smaller ones that live in this pan. So this is one of the smaller ones. Thought it wasn't as big as the big guy that we're used to seeing. So I personally have only seen this one small one and then the big one on a number of occasions. But thank you very much to our Zoomy. Much appreciated for the feedback. Right, we're going to give this little terrapin time to soak up some more rays. We have the luxury of being able to swap around and go and see other camera feeds, which I hope we'll be doing for the rest of the show. And we're going to go back up to Kenya and Africam's Old Donyo cam feed to go and see what's around the pan now. Aha. So here we are at Africam Old Donyo in Kenya. So to give you some perspective, if you don't know already, we've come 5 countries further north, 5,000 kilometers. So halfway up the African continent from where we were now. And what we've got around the Waterhole is some Patterson's eland. We've got some warthog on the left-hand side and some more zebra. And then walking in now is a fringe-eared oryx with the straight horns. These are our usual the usual species that we find around this particular pan. I don't know, we've managed to identify some of the remarkable elephant that come down to drink here from time to time. Eland and zebra and warthog and oryx, not so much. but from a species point of view, we see a lot of these represented here. A lot more water today than there was yesterday, thankfully.
Are you looking to take your bond with the wild to the next level? Download our app and access in-depth chats with our naturalists and special guests. Connect and converse in real time on our Ask Me Anythings, fireside chats, hangouts, and town halls. WeChat, available on the WildEarth app. WildEarth, we are Safari.
He doesn't look like he's too frantic. These elephant, we see them hanging around these pans hanging around this pan at Old Donyo. Male elephants seem to stay for unusually long periods of time. On average, I think they're staying for 40 minutes to an hour, hour and a half. And I think it's mainly due to the fact that the seep itself into the pan is rather more of a trickle than it is pumped. And so they don't get a very big trunkful. It's basically a mouthful at a time, and an animal as big as an elephant takes some time to fill them up. I can't actually recall ever seeing a herd of elephant here. It seems to just be a superabundance of males. The only other place I've ever seen that has been in northern Botswana at a place called Savuti. It's a marsh that has dried up, or is usually dry. It sometimes fills up with water in very high rainfall areas, but it just tends to attract large numbers of male elephant and not so many females. Is there? The relatively old elephant builders. You can see his tattered ears and his tusks that are chipped and frayed. A relatively big skull in relation to his body as a ratio. But he is on his own, and I don't think he's too old. I'm going to say that he's probably in the region of about 35 to 40 years old, with a maximum expected life of around 55. So you have an idea of where he is in his life cycle. But we've got some female elephant busy drinking at Jamala now, and why don't we go and contrast the two? So just like that, we jump over to another pan, and we've now moved out of Kenya. We're back in South Africa, in Madikwe at Jamala. And here we have what looks to be two or maybe even three herds of elephant that have come down after the zebra, after the buffalo, which, if you have just joined us, we were seeing about half an hour ago. There was about 200 or so, 250 buffalo that came down to drink. And now we've got, like I said, two, possibly three herd of elephant. Elephant herds in this area are 6 to 12 individuals, generally speaking. And so when I see more than that in one place, I want to start dividing them in two and in three and see what you get. Be made up of females and then adolescent males, well, adult females, and then their offspring, basically, with adolescent males crowning it off. And then every now and again, they might be in attendance when one of the females has got, well, is in estrus. There'll definitely be other bull elephant around, but not today. Lucky that my computer's got a mute button. I had a sudden sneeze there and just managed to put the mute button on. I don't know what it is, but for some reason, as soon as I start the show, I get a hay fever attack. It takes me about an hour to get under control, and then and then it sorts itself out. So it is the most bizarre thing. Can't explain it at all. So similar to that male elephant that we were seeing up at Oldonyo, these ellies would also need to travel quite far between feeding areas and water, and will also only drink once a day. And so we'll spend some time around this water getting what they need before they move on. For those of you with the volume button turned up high, you may from time to time hear some human activity in the background, and that's because the camp, which is just behind the camera, is being rebuilt. It burned down a couple of months ago and is being furiously worked on by any number of staff, and needs to be, because tourism supports a large amount of the employment opportunities in a country that has a very high unemployment rate. And so to get this camp up and running again is a great thing for local communities and provides a source of income for many, many, many people. See this impala herd coming down to drink. They'd be characters around this particular waterhole. This will be the herd associated with this water. Impala being water dependent and not found very far from water at all. You're looking at an 800-meter radius or so away from this pan. That's the most they're going to be moving. in the dry and then a little bit wider in the wet, ranging a little bit wider, but not much. Cool, let's go and have a look at Naledi Pan. Aha, there we go. So this mommy and baby warthog we're seeing regularly now. They're coming out to feed on this grassy patch. And we're now in the Greater Kruger Park again. So we've come east from Adiko. We're still in South Africa. This is Africam Naledi Dam Camp. And we're starting to recognize this female and her baby. This mother warthog is starting to come here quite often. I'd hesitate to say that she comes every day at this point, but definitely many times a week to come and feed on this grass that's growing inside this pan. She brings with her daughter, and I think she's very clever for a warthog. She's taken a risk. It's obviously dangerous to walk into water in the Kruger. Run the risk of getting smashed by a crocodile or eaten by a lion or leopard pride that's living in the area. But we quite enjoy her. Joe, you've made an interesting observation and then asked the question, why are they not feeding on their knees this time? I actually haven't seen these two feeding on their knees inside the water. They do feed on their knees when what they're trying to eat is very close to the ground, like rhizomes or something, and their warthog will go down on their knees. But I think because this grass is, at eye level, basically, just below, they don't need to do that. So they don't need to get themselves angled down. And they're basically just enjoying the grass that's growing here on the edge. They eat for a couple of minutes until they're full, and then both mom and baby move off. It looks such good condition for this time of the year. She's pregnant, so she has some babies with her. We were debating on when we're going to be seeing her babies. I'm thinking last week of November, first week of December sometime, if she decides to grace us with her presence at that time of the year and come and show us her babies. Because I'm assuming that we'll have a little bit more rain between now and then and that the grass will flush, she might actually decide not to come back to the water. But I'm holding thumbs. I'd love to see her babies. A blacksmith lapwing in the background. Trying to make the most out of any opportunity that the warthog present. And by that I mean kicking up any insects or mainly just insects that bird can then snatch up. Oh, we've just had an update from one of our Zoomies that operate the cam here at Naledi Cam, and they said that there was actually a crocodile here for a short time, but it was a small one, and that's very interesting. That crocodiles definitely do move from water body to water body. They walk, cross country. Usually what happens is that either competition in a water source is too much and crocodiles migrate to expand territory, or their water point has dried up and they need to move. And so what you may have found was that this young crocodile was moving away from a nearby dam or river where competition may have been a bit fierce and he was in danger of getting gobbled up. Set up shop here at this for a while. And when he felt that he was a bit fitter or bigger, better able to cope, he went back again. Pretty cool feedback, that. But it just goes to show you can never trust crocodiles, or you can never trust water bodies in areas where crocodiles frequent. They will arrive just all of a sudden, and where it wasn't dangerous yesterday, it decidedly different on another day. So this warthog female and her baby, they definitely do enjoy this grassy treat. This time of the year, there's not a lot of green stuff available at all, and I'm just very proud of her that she's managed to bring her baby up and is utilizing this particular resource. I hope that she doesn't get into too much of a complacent attitude and keeps her wary eye and ears open, and doesn't fall victim to any number of prey species. So this pan, you'll see in a bit, we have quite thick bush verging up onto it, and this time of the year it's not uncommon for lion and leopard to set up shop. Oh, an elephant just arrived. Goodness me. Something so big they can sneak up. So cool. Told you can hear the mud being splashed up onto the ellie. This is one of my favorite spots because of the cover afforded to different animals around, but also because of that well that you're having a look at. You see the ellies have been drinking at it already. Usually, the elephant drink out of the well because it's the cleanest water available, and then come for a mud bath using the sediment at the bottom of the pan to come and cool themselves down. It's 26 degrees centigrade right now, so sort of in the 80s. It's quite hot. When you get hotter today. A little bit of rain last night. It doesn't look like much fell here at Katai Pan. I just enjoy that whole well shape. It's just pretty cool. Let's listen to the ellies for a bit. You gotta love the way that they splash themselves. Just had a comment come through that's sounding very nice and relaxing. Couldn't agree with you more. Here we can see that warthog and baby exiting down the drainage line in the background. She's gone now. Peter, good morning to you. And you would like to know why is the mud so dark? Peter, there's a high clay content in the mud in this particular area. Also, where Naledi is, there's such a diversity of different geology structures or geological structures. It's an area of our country that is very rich in different mineral deposits. But generally speaking, when sand is the color that you're seeing now, or mud is the color that you're seeing now, it's either very clay rich or it has a lot of decaying plant material in. But I think that this is just clay deposited firstly by runoff, and so carrying bits and pieces of rocks and minerals with water that runs off from rain, and then also from being brought in by a variety of different animals. Warthog, buffalo, rhino, elephant would all dislodge their bits of mud and clay that they bring in from other places. On the left-hand side, you'll notice some yellow and white flowers. That's the flowers of a gardenia, and this time of the year would be perfuming the air around this particular pan, the most unbelievable fragrance. You can imagine the gardenia is like a beautiful smell, very similar to a jasmine. And with this tree flowering in such profusion, it would be wafting that perfume all over the place and be a beautiful smell, as opposed to the rank mud that's being scooped up from the bottom of this pan, being dashed around all over the place. The flowers change color on those gardenias once they've been pollinated. And they're pollinated at night time, not usually during the day. You don't see too much insect activity around them or too much activity at night time. But elephants really enjoy them. This time of the year, they get knocked over by elephants and the roots and the bark of the tree gets eaten by elephants. And so it's rare to see a really healthy gardenia out in these areas. So definitely something for us to celebrate. while it still has flowers. Right, let's leave these two boys to their day and go and have a look at Rosie's pan. So this is a African Rosie's pan. We're a few kilometers away from where we were now at Naledi. And what we look at there are two grey go-away birds. They get their name from their call. They've got a variety of different calls, but one of the calls that they've got is a very distinct go-away sound. And in fact, these birds do act as sentries that other animals take heed of. So when they start to make their noise, other animals listen. And they've just had a bath. You can see the feathers are looking rather wet and bedraggled. That shake plus the... You can see that the feathers are wet. They eat mainly fruit. Interestingly, the outside toe on their foot, so you'd usually associate these birds by having 3 forward-facing toes and 1 backward-facing toe. But in fact, the outside toe on their foot is loose, and they can swing it to have 2 backward-facing toes and 2 forward-facing toes, and sometimes 3 forward-facing toes and 1 backward-facing toes. Usually birds have one or the other, not both. But these go-away birds have a floating toe. And what that does is it enables them to perch really effectively, but also to perch upside down in a variety of different directions. And so definitely an adaptation that can help. So for those of you who've been following this Africam Rosie's pan camera for some time, we just had an update from the zoomer who said, there used to be a python that used to live in this tree, in a cavity in the tree, and used to catch birds that landed here after their bath. We haven't seen the python in quite some time, and that's most likely because the python is hibernating, or estivating is actually the more correct term. And I'm hopeful that once the weather warms up a little bit and the days get a little bit longer and there's a little bit more surface water around, that we start seeing that python again. It will be fantastic to see. So we usually see pythons in the summertime in this area. It's the African rock python. And if the snake wasn't eaten by something or displaced by a bigger snake, it should still be around, probably underground or in a tree cavity, just going through the dry season. So cool having watched this bird sort of had his bath. It's a blue waxbill with a lovely powdered blue color on its chest and vent and tail and throat. Great work from the Zoomy there. So difficult to actually control these webcams. It's not like traditional camera where you have sort of a built-in button. You got to do this with a keyboard. Definitely not that easy. So well done.
those sounds just go straight through you.
You'll notice that when this bird changed position from earlier on, that the toe on the right foot that was pointing back has now moved into a forward position. And here we go. A bit of a wider view around the pan. You can see how dynamic these cameras are that we've got to operate. It's really cool. And we've got some probably wax balls here on the edge of the pan. Tough to see their colors now. I'm going to zoom in there and see. Ooh, difficult. So no, they weren't wax balls. They didn't have that characteristic blue color. Could have been anything from firefinches to red-billed quelea. Tough to say. I didn't actually get the view, but here we've got a little bird that just went down there. Let's see if you can see some colors. We've got some blue there, so that's one of the blue is a blue wax bill, so that's all blue wax bills. It was really cool. Okay, so most of them are blue wax bills, most likely exactly what that other flock was. So that's a flock of blue wax bills. Really great work, Zumi. These blue wax bills are actually incredible birds. They have a symbiosis with wasps, and they will build their nests from the grass stalks and seed heads or inflorescences of the blue seed grass, which they favor as food. And often they will build their nests in thorn trees, and next to their nests will be a wasp nest. And the symbiosis they have, it's tough to say, whether they pick to build their nest next to the wasps or whether the wasps pick to build their nest next to the birds. It's difficult to say. But from what I've read is that the wasps don't gain much from having the birds nearby, but the birds gain the protection of the wasps. And so it would be where one species benefits from the relationship and the other species is neither harmed nor benefits from it. So commensalism. Gosh, having a proper bath. Well done again to the Zumi controlling this camera. I know it's the third time lucky. So congratulations, it's such a great shot. Like I said, it's not easy controlling these cameras, and they are so dynamic. To give you an idea, these birds are about half the size. Well, they'd fit into your palm, just so half the size of your hand. Tiny, tiny, fast-moving little seed-eating birds. I love the way these birds bath. Their feathers, they keep their feathers in such great condition that for the most part, the water actually beads off of the surface of the feathers. They're water repellent. So to get the water onto their skins, which is, birds are fastidious about how clean they are, they have to fluff out their feathers and then scoop water around their primaries and then into their down feathers and their fluffy feathers, their secondary feathers on their bodies. Now, since we're looking at some birds, I'd like to tell you about the Big Birding Heritage Day Challenge that we have on the 28th to the 30th of September. So WildEarth and BirdLife SA and Birda are partnering to bring you a Big Birding Heritage Challenge. And what you just need to do is tune into the WildEarth live drives to spot and log the various bird species on the Birda app in any of South Africa's 12 official languages. And then 2 guests from BirdLife will be joining us for the weekend, and there will also be a fireside chat on the 30th. So a really great day. BirdLife SA hosts a annual Big Birding Day challenge, and teams are invited to over, I think it's a 24-hour period. I think it's 24 hours on a specific date on a specific weekend, and within a specific distance around where you register yourself to log birds. And it's really such a great challenge. And it's a way for citizen scientists to help log birds in an effort for us to better understand where they occur and what occurs where, and if we need to move to conserve any particular species in an area. So a really great thing to do. So please definitely do take up that challenge. It would be great to have you contribute. It looks like for the most part that flock of blue waxbill is now finished bathing and has moved on. No, here we go. Either others or same flock. It's a slightly different bird. You can see it's bigger. Looks to be a female weaver, actually, of some sort. Sparrow. It's difficult. One of the things that I've been battling with from an IDing bird perspective is that because you can zoom in and out, you don't really have the luxury of contextualized size. And I found that at least the way I identify birds is often first by their size or by their general impression of shape and size. It's called the jizz of a bird. And I often second guess myself, actually. But what is great about this African Rosie's pan is the fact that there's such a secluded little beach for these birds, plus the outlet, and then gives them a very secluded access to that beach with the bushes that grow right up to it. So really actually quite a special place for birds. This and the other day we went to Kwamaritani as a camera feed, and we also saw that was a great place for birds as well. All right, Why don't we utilize the fact that the luxury about the fact that we've got so many different camera feeds all over Africa, or Southern Africa, Namibia, and Kenya, and Zimbabwe, and go and have a look at Jamala to see what's around there. Aha. So probably still the same elephant. So now we've moved 1,000 kilometers west quickly back to Madikwe, and we're at Jamala Pan. And a little bit earlier on, we had what looked to be two or possibly even three herd of elephant, which now have amalgamated into one group. I still think that there's two different elephant herds here, all clustered around the freshwater inlet, with some zebra and impala in the background, adding to the species diversity. This pan is really great for animals 24/7. So, this time of the year, we're looking at lots of animals that come down here. That reddish color you see, that the elephant is from the dust in the area. And these animals have a dust bath to help insulate them from the sun. They pick up the color of the sand, and there's lots of red sand deposits in Madikwe. See, it's a fairly large herd of impala. Lorraine, you've just sent through a comment. So, firstly, hello. And secondly, 100% agree with you, Lorraine. Just love this pan and the variety of animals that it has. We're seeing so many of our pans begin to get characters of their own as the dry season progresses. Jamala, definitely one of those that has grown on us over the year. Well, over the, I want to say, years that we've been in Madikwe. It's definitely more than a year. Over the, let me hedge myself by saying over the many months that we've been at Madikwe. We started there September last year. Yeah, was it September last year? It must have been September last year. This pile of sand was put there for some reason. We'll one day see what's happening. Looks like a little gremlin crept into the system and disturbed our video feed from there, which is no problem. We sometimes bring you, well, we do bring you, not sometimes bring you, we do bring you feeds from some of the most remote places on Earth. Sometimes gremlins creep into the system, and rather abruptly we change cameras. And what we've done is we've hopped over a country into Namibia, right up to the north of Namibia, into the Etosha National Park. And we're at the Okakweo feed now. This is a permanent water source in Etosha that is adjacent to Okakweo Camp, one of the three large camps in Etosha National Park. Very clear day there today. It's actually so great to see. Blue sky. Can often get quite hazy out here, particularly when the wind is blowing. And the animals that we're seeing here are made up mainly of springbuck. We see a lot of springbuck around this pan. There's southern oryx, very different to the oryx, well, not very different, but different to the oryx that we see at Eldonia in Kenya. We've got some animal approaching on the game path off to the right. We'll see what it is when it gets a bit closer. It could be a wildebeest or a zebra. I'm undecided just yet. And I see there's a faint breeze ruffling the surface. So nice to see. These springbuck are small to medium-sized antelope, perfectly suited to the desert environment. They've got a whole bunch of sort of adaptations to help them survive. They don't actually need to drink, although obviously do when water is available. And often, if you watch that one there in the back, we see springbuck in this particular area wade chest deep into the water and celebrate the fact that there's surface water, as well as make sure they don't drink too many sediments kicked up by animals closer to the bank. Two of the adaptations that they have to live in the desert is to help them with temperature control. As you know, temperature is highly variable in the desert, and it's freezing cold nights in winter, warmish days, and then in summer you have these massively hot days. So the springbuck have got two things there. You can see that white rump on this particular springbuck. During the heat of the day, they can angle themselves so that that white patch faces the sun, and that they present the smallest surface area of their body as possible to the sun's rays, and will reflect a large portion of the direct sunlight off of their body using that white blaze to great effect. And then on really cold days, they can stand and present that themselves broadside and present that black dark stripe side of their bodies to the sun, which further heats them up or quicker heats them up. So some coat patterns there allowing springbuck to live easier in these environments. They can also super concentrate their urine, and they can dilate and inflate their nasal cavities, allowing for air to be warmed up or cooled down in their nasal cavities. Right, why don't we give Okakoya some time to reset and go and have a look at what's happening at Cat's Eye Pan. I love the fact that we can move between these different pans. And now we're back in the Kruger National Park at Africam's Cat's Eye Pan and looking at two Egyptian geese. It's a mated pair. We saw them yesterday or the day before for the first time. They've pulled into this water source for a bit and have claimed it as their own. They would be bonded for their lives. And will have and bring up their babies together, which is quite nice. See that they're actually quite strikingly coloured. In fact, just below their dark sort of that chestnut colour on their wings, it's actually a speckled feather when you look at it close by. I quite like them. They're very common and can actually damage some or certain crops quite extensively in extreme numbers. So not well liked by everyone, but I quite enjoy them. I'm just told that you can hear this huge buzzing noise, and it's a fly or a carpenter bee that's inspecting a camera housing around the microphone. So I apologize for that noise, but it is Africa, and we do have a healthy population of insects around. Not really that profound this time of the year, but funny nevertheless. You can see those round dish-shaped tracks in the foreground. Those are for elephants that made those round-shaped tracks. Talking about elephants, why don't we go and have a look at Rosie's pan? There's some apparently there waiting for us. Ah, a few kilometers away in the same general area, we're still in the Greater Kruger National Park. We've got Africam's Rosie's pan up now, and we've got a young bull elephant that's walked up the embankment, as opposed to the tiny blue wax bulls who we were having a look at a little bit late, or a little bit earlier. Oh, where's the rest of your family gone, big guy? Are they around somewhere? Are you just hanging around on your own? I doubt it. They'll be around somewhere. Young bull elephant will leave their natal herd anywhere from about, depending on what records you read, 15 years to 21, 22, 25 years. Let's just say 18 to 20 as an average. And will lead a fairly nomadic life from there until when they die, forming up into small bachelor herds that sort of come and go with the seasons and the months. These youngsters of this age usually join very old bulls, continue to learn from them and what to do and how to do it. And then when they're around 35 years old, they tend to go out on their own for a few years. You don't see them hanging around with anyone else until they're 45 plus again. They'll basically be alternating between feed when they're that old and they're on their own, feeding and finding breeding females to breed. Elephants have a way of making water look so delicious to drink. Giving us a nice view of his feet, actually. The elephant's front feet are round with 5 toes on it, and their back feet are oval with 4 toes on it. And their feet are this fleshy pad, very similar to our own. So they'll have calluses on the bottom, but I'm told you can actually hear him walking on the sand, sort of gently crushing. They can move very quiet. Okay? But their feet are very similar to ours at the bottom. These cameras are so amazing. Not only do we get this epic resolution and all these different points of view, eye view and from above and from below and on eye level, but we also get to hear what's going on as well, which is lovely. You can hear him there slurping the water and throwing it to the side. You can also hear the water dripping out of his trunk. Really super nice. Almost hear him smacking his lips at how delicious this water is. Suzanne, you sent through a comment this morning. Thank you. And you say that elephants are the best thing ever. I must be honest with you, I quite enjoy elephant as well, to be honest with you, Suzanne. I love what they do. They're always busy with something, very nurturing mothers. The bulls are bulls. you know, these macho men who walk around governed by their hormones and urges. I'm told that you heard a low rumble now, and that's probably this elephant talking to the rest of the herd in the area. These young bulls of this age, they're like boy teenagers in a shopping center. They need to move with mom and dad, but they don't want to be associated with them because it's not cool. And that rumble that you heard was him probably communicating with the rest of the herd. He's not going to be far away, although out of sight at the moment. There you go, right close to the camera. You can hear him wet his flanks, flap his ears.
Do you want to touch the lives of future protectors of our Earth? Thanks to our wonderful WildEarth explorers, WildEarth Kids is back. Sign your class up for WildEarth schools and enjoy a special virtual field trip to Africa with interactive learning tailored for kids.
Very warm welcome to the kids from WildEarth Primary School.
We'll be dedicating the first hour of sunset safaris every Wednesday to our planet's future defenders. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
pose that you're seeing the elephant doing with his ears slightly out and his trunk up is an elephant scenting the air. He's smelling something on the air. And we'll see whether it makes him nervous or happy. Very, very good sense of smell. Many, many, many times better than ours. Let's see what he does. He's got his ears slightly up. Doesn't look like he's too upset about anything. But it does look like he might be going. Why don't we go and have a look at one of our other camera feeds, in particular Kwamaritan. We've got some ellies there in that thicket pan as well. So here we've got some ellies at our African Kwamaritan cam. We've gone from the Greater Kruger National Park to the Pilanesberg National Park, which is situated in an ancient volcano. Dormant now, but once a volcano nonetheless. And we're watching these ellies. So nice that we can hear these elephants drinking. Now, the freshest water in this particular case would be right on the surface because it's where the least amount of sediment would be. So the slurping and the splashing that you're hearing is the elephants moving, initially flapping at the water to remove any detritus and leaves, and then noisily slurping just the top layer, trying not to disturb it to get the freshest water. Let's listen for a while. Got some females with their babies that have joined us now. So great to have this camera. It's such a lovely spot, this, with the forests, or bush as we call it, growing right up to the edge of the pan. It provides sanctuary and concealment for any number of shy creatures coming down to the water. The elephant not enjoying the presence of that bird. Wants to show the bird how big and tough he is. Very brave. So what is pretty cool is we've got school registration and school drives back again from 2:30 to 3:30 in the afternoon Central Africa time during the Sunset Safari. And if any of you are teachers out there and would like to register for it, please go and register at wildearth.tv/kids, and you'll be able to register yourself and your school or your class for those school drives. They are really fantastic to get kids connected with nature, and we can do that from all over the world in actual fact. So please go and do that if you're a teacher, and then also for those of us who love listening to kids ask their questions, it offers a quite a unique insight sometimes into what kids are watching. So they'll come up again Wednesdays weekly from 2:30 to 3:30 Central Africa time during the Sunset Drive Safari. These little elephants. They're always busy doing something. And they, all chasing after mom with insecurity, or, having an absolute blast in the water, playing around with a cousin or a brother or a friend. Sometimes to the irritation of the adult elephants, I must be honest with you. There's just so many shared attributes between elephant and people. It's crazy. Momo, you'd like to know how they find their herd when they lose it. Gosh, Momo. Sound is the answer. It's not uncommon for elephant to be, in inverted commas, lost. They're not really lost. Elephant can and do communicate over massive distances. You're looking at 10 to 15 kilometers using infrasound, which is ultra low frequency sound. But when moms and calves are separated from one another, they will use that infrasound, but also trumpeting, squealing, calling. And so when, in the unusual case that you do find that they separated out, this female's coming so close, we'll use sound. And then elephant can track really well using smell as well. So they can smell where other elephant have walked, and they'll smell where has walked. So unless it's rained and washed out the scent, elephant can track their families really well. Here she's walking out onto the plain next to the pan. It's a thick bush on the one side, an open patch behind. These little illies slaking their thirst. It's hot today here. Hot weather, high wind speeds, dry grass, low humidity equals big fire. And it was a tragedy to hear over the weekend that places have been burning down all over the country. Not nice to hear at all. Right, it is the top of the hour, so I just want to say thank you to all of you who have been watching the show so far, and to any new viewers out there, welcome. My name is Stefan Tabur. I'm a naturalist for WildEarth. Along with my colleagues, we present this live at the Waterhole show. It is a live show, so what you're looking at now is exactly what's happening right now at this instant at the Africam Kwamaritani camera feed. This particular camera, and we have many all over Southern Africa, Namibia, and Kenya, is coming to you from the Pilanesberg National Park. And if you may have heard, we've got a interactive portion to the show, so you can actually communicate with us live. And you just need to go and register on the WildEarth website in order to do so. I'll give you a prompt there, and you can send in your comments and ask me some questions and share any observations or experiences that you may have had. It would be lovely to hear from you. What we're having a look at now is a breeding herd of elephant, just having a cooling down drink before moving off and feeding for the rest of the day. It's just these two youngsters left. Before the pan will reset and new groups of animals and birds will come in. can see and hear from the breeze that it's fairly windy across the country today. We are progressing from winter to summer through spring. Spring day here on the 1st of September. And the transition is always marked by high winds, dry, hot weather. But eventually what we'll start to see is those giant cumulus clouds building up on the horizon and the associated rain and storms that come with them. What you'll also notice is the fact that all the brown from the trees that you see will green up, and eventually it'll be very difficult to see anything brown or grey, and everything will be a most vibrant green. That young elephant there has found himself a stick. He's busy chewing the bark off of it. You can see how he used these molars to chew off the bark, not really eating the wood, not eating any leaves on that particular morsel. Joe, you just sent in a comment. Thank you for doing that. And you said that you could sit and watch this all day. 100% agree with you there, Joe. It's such a great show. This is a highlight of my day when I'm scheduled to host the shows. I love sharing things like this with you. So I'm also really enjoying the show. On a day like today, it just feels like there's so many peaceful interludes with lots of noise going around. It's lovely. I'm just adding a nice calmness and a serenity to today's show. Some days it's very active and busy. Just the beauty of hosting a live show, I suppose. Right, one of the most serene places that we've got on offer, our smorgasbord of cameras, is Camphor's Dam. And so we haven't been there yet today, so why don't we go and have a look at what's happening out there? You can see how different the weather is at Kimberley today from what we were just experiencing in Pilanesberg and in the Greater Kruger. It's very windy and overcast at Camphor's today. And we've got this flock of lesser flamingo that are grouped together to get out of the wind and stay warm, trying to shelter from the worst of the wind. Got their heads all tucked away. Shame, man. Not having a great day today. Looks like the whole current population of flamingo that are at the pan today all just hanging around together. For those of you seeing this particular feed for the first time, this is a pan near a historically relevant town in South Africa called Kimberley, the home of a diamond rush at a point, and where people, through their own manual labor, excavated an enormous, giant man-made hole. And this particular pan is one of those ephemeral high-felt pans that dot the Great Escarpment, the plateau of the Great Escarpment. and he's home to one of the only breeding colony of lesser flamingos in this, or breeding place of lesser flamingos in South Africa, and only one of 7 in the world for this threatened species of bird. Today, not doing too much. Some birds there feeding on the fringes, most of them just staying out of the weather.
Are you looking to take your bond with the wild to the next level? Download our app and access in-depth chats with our naturalists and special guests. Connect and converse in real time on our Ask Me Anythings, fireside chats, hangouts, and town halls. WeChat, available on the WildEarth app. WildEarth, we are Safari.
We're not going to zoom in too much on this particular flock today because it's windy, and what happens then is any movement on the camera caused by the wind is accentuated, and so will wobble a little bit and has a tendency to make one feel quite seasick. So I'm just going to keep a nice wide spot, have a look at what these flamingos are getting up to, and then we'll probably move off. Go and have a look at something else in a while, but in the meantime we can sit and marvel at how pretty these birds actually are, and also how lucky we are to have conserved them in this particular area. Firstly, through conservation efforts, highlighting the fact that these birds do occur here, and then monitoring them, and then deciding, no, we need to do something about this place. Make sure that it's kept for future generations. And now it's a 500-hectare joint venture. Quite a few different stakeholders, but everyone working really hard to make sure that they play their part in keeping this area in the best shape it can be. Flu, you've asked an interesting question. Where do these flamingo, fleur, fleur, that's how you say it, right? Fleur, Fleur. So fleur, this flock of flamingos would go to sleep right here, although if they are moving, they tend to move between pans at nighttime. That is the tendency of flamingos. So you can wake up and see more flamingos or wake up to see less flamingos tomorrow morning, and it's because they tend to fly at nighttime anywhere from just the adjacent pan, neighboring water body of water, to a couple of 100 kilometers. I think the longest recorded flight was an East African flock of 450 kilometers, as far as I can find. There are obviously other information sources out there, and so if flamingos have flown further, please do find that and share with me. Great to hear from you. But yeah, a couple, from next door to a couple of 100 kilometers would be what they do. So I hope that answered your question. Bristol Dave, you've asked, do flamingos change places like penguins in order to keep warm? Yeah, they do. So you'll notice that they will bustle about. Obviously, those fantastic pictures that we got from, I can't remember what production it was, but one of those premier productions where they overwintered with a flock of penguins and put time lapse cameras up to show you just how the penguins on the outside jostle to the inside, get warm, are displaced then by other penguins who have a need to get warm. Um, those temperatures are obviously extreme, and those weather conditions are extreme. But to some degree or another, it would be exactly the same in this particular flock, in that the flamingos in the center of the flock won't feel the effects of the wind as much. They'll also be warm, but pressure from those on the outside that aren't will force them to come out and for that dynamic to change. And so there'll be an ever shifting pattern here, but you definitely have to time lapse this particular flock to see that. It's not going to be happening in our sense of time. Modo, you'd like to know if there's no breeding sites of flamingos on the east coast of South Africa in the Greater St. Lucia wetland. Sorry, I was on mute there, so I couldn't actually answer your question, Modo. So let me just start that again. You wanted to know if there's breeding flamingos or breeding colonies of flamingos in the Greater St. Lucia Wetland National Park. And what I was saying was I don't actually know. It's a great question. I was reading the BirdLife SA website on this particular colony, but you might find that there are others that just aren't updated. So give me a second. Let me go and see if I can find any reference to that. And then also, there are two different species of flamingo. You've got greater and lesser flamingos. You might find that that might be a colony of greater flamingos. But one second, Modo, and I'll answer the question for you. So, Moto, here I have found a report that says flamingos have been reported to nest on Lake St. Lucia in 1954, but they certainly do not do so now, and no evidence that they ever did has been gleaned. There are definitely no flamingo breeding grounds anywhere in Zululand, including the northeast portion, usually called Tongaland or Maputaland. And so that seems to be a report, but this report was written in a very long time ago. This was 1957 to 1958. So, and was retyped in 1981. So a long time ago. Let me see if I can find something else. Something a little bit more current. All right, so here's something a little bit more current. During 4 consecutive years, from 2007 to 2011, lesser flamingos bred on a purpose-built S-shaped island constructed at Campus Dam. An estimated 24,000 chicks were produced, representing the only documented incident of successful breeding in South Africa. The island flooded in the summer of 2011-2012, and no breeding has subsequently taken place. At least 12 breeding attempts at sites in South Africa has been unsuccessful, mainly because the sites are small, with low numbers of flamingos and therefore unsuitable for mass breeding. The lesser flamingo's non-breeding distribution in South Africa is centered on the central, around the area in Campus Dam, but also occurs along the west and south coasts. Large numbers have been recorded at Lake St. Lucia. It is a vagrant to Swaziland and potential vagrant to Lesotho. A satellite telemetry study of individuals from their breeding in Botswana identified their migration to non-breeding feeding points in South Africa and Mozambique, suggesting their reliance on a wide variety of small wetlands and coastal areas during the non-breeding season. In excess of 1 million non-breeding lesser flamingos have been observed at Etosha and Suapans. So Etosha is in Namibia and Sua is in Botswana. The large influxes of birds in southern Africa coincide with decreases in East Africa, which suggests movements between these two populations. From Simmons in 1996. So this was from the South African National Biodiversity for Life website, and is the red list of South African species. This article was written by Jeffrey St-Hilaire in January 2015. So, Moto, we live to learn, right? And I hope that that answers your question. So, it would seem that although we find in summer non-breeding lesser flamingos in a lot of places around the country, they're not breeding. And the last time that these birds successfully bred was more than 20 years ago, which is a bit shocking, but nonetheless, it looks like we've got enough birds here, and hopefully at some point in the future we see them breeding again and successfully raising some chicks. Really cool to learn from each other like this. So thank you very much, Moto, for that question. It's really nice to learn new things, to be honest. so nice to have a camera that we've got such high resolution on, and that we can zoom in and zoom out, and we can pan and tilt and do all sorts of wonderful things with, to be honest with you. On a day like today, we're not going to be zooming in too much because it's going to have a slight wobble, but we can definitely see that these flamingos are trying to hiding out from the weather for the most part, joined by the red-knobbed coots. And every now and again, you'll see one that doesn't really care about the weather and carries on feeding, obviously staying warm. Whoop, there's some disturbance and everyone needed to look. And yeah, some birds are just carrying on with their day, to be honest with you, just food trumping staying warm and comfortable, or the need for food trumping staying warm and comfortable. And of course, some are also preening their feathers in the never-ending chore that is. All right, there is atrocious weather here at Kimberley today, and so why don't we change regions and hopefully find a better day somewhere else. A rather dramatic change there. We've decided to come all the way to Africam's Aldonio feed up in Kenya, 5,000 kilometers away from where we were. And true to form, this particular camera is just delivering on large pachyderms, large bull pachyderms. And we've got a couple of noteworthy elephant. The one on the far right, I feel like we've seen him before because he's just got such beautifully symmetrical tusks. The one on the left with his broken ear, also possibly have seen before. These ellies have spent some time here because I see that they've wet their flanks, and the beach and the edge of the pan is wet and muddy and slick, and the level of water has reduced dramatically. You can see them fighting over the freshwater inlet. This pan is an artificial water point, which is not a bad thing, to be honest, particularly because the water is augmented with the treated water that comes out of the lodge's wastewater system. So no water is put to waste, it's treated and then recycled back into the pan and then augmented from rain catchment, that is stored rain catchment. And so really good thing for the animals in this particular area to have this. And one of the ways that people are positively contributing to the environment. So quite respectfully, these elephants will share the freshwater inserts, but you can see them jostling with their trunks over there. Although it is respectful, one or the other will have their way. Great day up in Kenya today. In fact, we got a brief glimpse of the flanks of Mount Kilimanjaro behind that elephant in the center of the screen a little bit earlier. So, a clear, bright, shining day today. Atmosphere really blue, sharing that similar trait with our camera feed at Okakweyo in Namibia and Etosha. Also, clear blue sky today. Yeah, around the Greater Kruger area today, it's sort of muggy and overcast. It rained a bit last night, and we're expecting some more rain to fall tonight as a cold front system passes over the country, which has brought some catastrophic flooding in other parts of the country. So down in the Western Cape near Cape Town, people have been very negative affected by incredible weather that's been blowing in there the last couple of weeks. And this weekend was no different, with very high levels of rain, or very high rainfall levels, flooding out certain areas. So our condolences. So have a look at that elephant's ear. He's damaged his ear. It's hard to say whether or not that tear in his ear was what damaged the cartilage, um, the support structure that his ear hangs on. But it definitely looks like it was bent and damaged some way, because that ear is all sort of wrinkled and diminished. Definitely not as perky as the other one on the other side of his head, and so it damaged the circulation to that part of the ear, which is a pity because his ability to cool down. I mean, it's not completely cut off, otherwise the ear itself would have rotted away. Shame, he looked like he hurt it. Probably through fighting is most likely how he injured it. But it could have been any number of things. It could have been when he was younger. It could have been stuck on something. He could have run into something in the dark. He doesn't look too worse for wear, though. Kimbo, you'd like to know how old do these bulls look? And it's great that you asked the question just like that. It looks like our camera is frozen on this, so we may hop away. There you go. Timbo, I'll answer that question in a bit. We're just going to try and sort out the gremlins that cropped into the feed there. We do bring you these pictures from some of the most remote places on Earth, and from time to time we get a little technical glitch. We've got a team of really dedicated, epic technicians that are probably frantically scrambling to get that back up and running. And so I'll answer the question again in a bit, if we're lucky enough to see some elephant again. In the meantime, we've got our new pair of Egyptian geese that is just pulled in at Africam's Cat-Eye Pan. So we've come from Kenya back to the Greater Kruger National Park to Cat-Eye Pan. And yesterday we saw these geese pull into this pan. And it looks like they are going to stay for a few days, which will be quite nice. They'd be a monogamous pair or a bonded pair, and would stick together for life. So as long as one of them is alive, they won't take another mate, and in fact their bond will only get stronger. The longer birds are bonded together or paired together, the stronger their bond gets. And I suppose similar in that particular aspect to humans. Faint ripples on the water there, betraying some disturbance. There's also a terrapin that we have that live in this pan, a rather large one which we've gotten to know, in addition to the Egyptian geese, and then some smaller ones. We saw a smaller one today. All right, but these two are not doing too much, and we have the absolute benefit of having other feeds around the place. And so, why don't we go and have a look at Okakoyo and see what's happening around there? So, we can traverse of the African continent, a couple of 1,000 kilometers west of where we just were. We're now at Okakoyo, which is in Etosha National Park in northern Namibia, and we're looking at a whole selection of different antelope here. We've got the ever-present springbuck in the foreground, and then we've got some southern oryx, which, although common at this particular feed, we haven't had in too many numbers on the camera recently. You can see that, as opposed to the fringe-eared oryx that we have often on our camera at Aldonio in Kenya, these are larger slightly and grayer, so they're not that sort of rusty brown color, and they don't have that characteristic black tuft on the end of their ear or the dark band around the knee, but similarly are pristinely, not pristinely, that's the wrong word, positively adapted to living in very dry environments and do really well in Etosha, which is in a desert on the edge of a massive salt plain, 100 miles long by 50 miles wide, and easily seen from space. Very similar.
Those sounds just go straight through you.
I, for one, would love to be at Etosha today. This time of the year, with it being so dry, these waterholes just are an absolute treat from an abundance point of view, and will pretty much be busy like this 24/7. In fact, the first time I got to Etosha was so funny. I was told to present myself at the pan by some German tourists at precisely 4 o'clock, and the elephants will come. And I didn't quite understand what I was being told to do, but local knowledge is key. So I presented myself at the pan with my cooler box and a couple of beverages, and at 4 o'clock the elephants came, as well as a number of other animals through the course of the next 36 hours, and absolutely changed my life forever. That springbuck is so deep in the water. It looks like it's having the absolute best time. We debated this the other day, and what we decided was it's a combination of A, getting deep enough into the water so that you don't have to drink sediment filled water from being agitated by many other animals, but also in the sheer joy of it, because you often see springbuck wading deeper, oryx wading deeper out into the water, and just looking like they're enjoying getting wet. It's just so nice to see. So interestingly, Tosha itself covers about 8,500 square miles, and that centers on this phenomenal Etosha Pan, which is a vast expanse of salt with some lone salt springs used by animals as salt licks and as mud baths. And it has one of the largest populations of big game species in the world, including lion, elephant, rhino, eland, zebras, and springbuck. Um, and then in the absolute abundance of birds, including the flamingo, like we were talking about um, a little bit earlier. I know from personal experience at this time of the year, blisteringly hot. Let's see what the temperature is doing right now. Tembo, you've asked another question. You want to know why female springbuck have longer horns? Actually, female oryx have longer horns. Male springbuck have longer horns than females. But I'm assuming you meant the oryx, so I'm going to answer that question. So female oryx horns are longer because they don't fight other female oryx with their horns. Males have slightly shorter, thicker, stubbier horns because they do fight with one another. It's particularly for breeding rights over the females, and having long, thin horns doesn't add any advantage. You could easily break it off um, they become difficult to manage. They're not that much shorter. You're looking at a couple of inches at most, the difference, but it is noticeable because the female's horns tend to be longer and straighter and far more elegant. I, in fact, like female horns a lot more than I like the male's horns. But nevertheless, that's the reason. To answer your question specifically about the springbuck, so the male springbuck also fight with their horns, and so their horns are also longer and thicker. Their horns are longer and thicker than the females, but for very different reasons. The females also don't fight with their horns, but in this particular case, having longer horns mean that they'd suffer more from temperature changes. Goodness, there's a lot of zebra coming down. Look at them coming out of the distance there. Dozens upon dozens of them. So nice to see. So the weather today at Etosha, or right now at least anyway, is 32, which is not too hot, I suppose, considering the fact that it'll get up to 38 and 39 next weekend. I'm going to be in for a bit of a treat, so it'll go up into the low hundreds next weekend. The rest of the week it's going to be fairly... Oh, they're not zebra. Oh, there's a mix of zebra and wildebeest. So what I thought was only zebra was a mixture of zebra and wildebeest, which explain the abundance of animals. And then on the left we've got some kudu. We've got 2 greater kudu females as well. And some more antelope coming out of the left. Gosh, just emptying out the bush. Wouldn't a lion have a feast here today? Really nice to see them just being disgorged out of the forest fringes there at the back. Today that forest verge looks very close to the pan. Other days when it's a bit hazy it looks miles away. Here we have some black-faced impala now joining the mix, along with the kudu and the springbuck and the wildebeest and the zebra. Those impala are endemic to Etosha. They don't occur anywhere else, just here. So quite special to see. Such a treat seeing so many animals together out here in Etosha. It is a desert environment, and although Etosha National Park supports a large number of large mammals, one of the largest the sub-region, at least anyway. It is always quite special to see so many animals drinking. Plain zebra, fairly common across southern East Africa. Springbuck, restricted to the higher, drier parts of the country, and also southern Africa only. The black-faced impala, which only occur here, and then the blue wildebeest, which are also like the zebra, very common in southern and East Africa. Their numbers going up into the millions for the Great Migration up in the Greater Serengeti ecosystem. Definitely not the same wildebeest as here. Some black-faced impala and springbuck sharing all the activity, racing past the front of the camera. Interestingly, the zebra, both the males and the females obviously don't have any horns. The males, though, have erupted canines in their jaws, so they've actually got canines present in their top jaws that they'll use to slash at one another. Females don't have those canines. Both the springbuck and the wildebeest, male and female, have horns, with the males having the thicker, stronger horns. They definitely use the horns for fighting, so their necks are bigger and broader, and their horns are tougher and thicker. We have the oryx, where the male and the female also has horns, but where the female's horns are longer than the males. Probably found in an effort to increase their ability to protect their babies and themselves. Their horns are used to fend off predators, mainly lion, which feed on them in this particular area. Cheetah being the predator that catches the smaller antelope here with abundance. The black-faced impala meeting a springbuck. A species where only the males have horns and the females don't. So I was busy noting at how, for a while, we managed to listen to all the animals around Etosha, around Okokweyo, and listen to the environment around it, which from time to time will actually include some human-made noises, which you may or may not have heard just now. And that's because the camera actually sits inside or just adjacent to the camp, which is one of the most famous camps in Etosha because it's easily accessible. Well, it's easier accessible from Windhoek, the capital city of Namibia, and is a fairly large rest camp, in fact, where you can go and stay and look at what we're looking at in real life. But it does mean that from time to time the camera will have some noises that come to this. Pan is way too spectacular for there not to be people around. But I, for one, am not too concerned about that. I quite like the fact that there's people around. It shows that there's some much needed infrastructure that comes into these areas, providing employment and money, and therefore a reason to conserve these places for a much broader spectrum of the population, not just conservationists and people who have a liking to see wildernesses and their associated animals. And ultimately, that's what we need for sustainability of these places. It is the top of the hour, and so for those of you who have joined us over the last couple of minutes, firstly, welcome. For those of you who have been with us right from the beginning of the show, thank you very much. So far, the show has been going for 2.5 hours. It's a daily show called Live at the Waterhole. My name is Stefan Winterboer, and I'm a naturalist. And along with some other colleagues of mine, we present the show every day. This is a live camera feed from Okakwayo and the Etosha National Park, but we have a number of different cameras all over Southern Africa, including East Africa. And we shift instantly between one camera and another, depending on what we can see at the different camera feeds. It's also interactive, and so you are welcome to send through any comments or questions or observations that you may have had or experiences you may have had. And the way you do that is just by registering on the WildEarth website and following the prompts from there. It would be great to hear from you. In the foreground, we have some springbuck busy drinking. They don't need to drink. They can actually, just like the oryx, they can get a lot of their moisture, and almost all of it, from the vegetation that they eat. Their system is keyed to extracting, with the option of extracting the maximum amount of water from the food that they eat. And so they thrive in these very dry environments. Alrighty. We had a few gremlins creep into our system into our camera feed out of Aldonyo in Kenya a little bit earlier. We were busy chatting about elephants, and we figured that out now. And so why don't we go back and see what those Ellies are doing? So just like that, we are back in Kenya, and we're busy having a look at these Ellies. And the question that was asked when we lost the feed was, how old do these elephants look? And it's an interesting question, that, because it's subjective. It's subjective to my opinion, and I can share with you how I make my assessment, but it's by no means exact. And so you are obviously welcome on it, and I'd gladly share it with everybody. The only real way to do it would be to have a vet put one of these elephants to sleep with a chemical, or you to have a look at its teeth, and for a trained professional to make an assessment before waking the elephant up again. But anyway, here we go. So we start at the top end of the scale. Elephants that are 50 to 55 years of age are massive. Their bodies are huge, like this elephant on the right. Their skulls have also accelerated in growth and will look out of proportion to their bodies, relatively speaking. They would also start to lose some condition, so they won't look as healthy as what they could possibly look. And I see that our camera is frozen again, so we may hop over to another camera in an instant. Or just wait to see if it's going to unfreeze. Some patience, and we'll be, there you go, unfreezing there. So their tusks are usually very big, but also damaged in some way. All right, we don't seem to have been able to sort out the gremlins there, freezing the picture, which is okay. Getting a live feed out of these remote locations is a challenge some days, when internet speeds and connections, and it's very, very complex science, don't all play in perfect harmony. So we'll carry on with that discussion either later on or at another time. So we've hopped back across 2 countries and are now back at the Okakweo Camp Pan feed in Etosha National Park. You're busy having a look at doesn't matter where you look, there's an animal standing. Springbuck in the foreground, springbuck impala, blue wildebeest, zebra, and oryx in the background. So cool to see. All right, but that's not the only cameras that we have, and so why don't we go and have a look at Jamala and see what's happening around that epic pan as well. So now we're in South Africa, in Madikwe Game Reserve at Jamala, and we've got zebra and a warthog in the pan. There was a whole bunch of ellies here, like way over 20 elephant a little bit earlier, and before that even we had about 250 buffalo that were in the water as well at a stage earlier this morning. So it's been a very busy pan early this morning. Let's keep an eye on that warthog and see what he's going to be getting up to. The warthogs around the heat of the day come down to drink, but then will also wallow. And that warthog looks like he's going to go down now when they start to dig mud like that. And there you go. And he's busy having a mud wallow. Getting mud all over himself in an effort just to cool himself down, but also to stick to parasites, which he'll then go and scratch off, hopefully. There's a delightfully shaped scratching post behind the warthog, and I got no doubt that he'll probably gift us with some humor by scratching himself vigorously on one of these spots. It's a male warthog. They get really big. Like a really big one can weigh almost 200 pounds. Windy out there today. Weather is so unpredictable at the moment as the seasons change from from winter into summer. There we've got an elephant now approaching from the back. So this pan just doesn't fail to deliver. There you can see the warthog having a scratch on his scratching post. We've got a great view now, a wide angle view, lots of things to look at. We've got the warthog scratching himself delightfully. We've got this big bull elephant approaching, zebra looking on. Who knows what else is going to pop out of the woodwork.
Do you want to touch the lives of future protectors of our Earth? Thanks to our wonderful WildEarth explorers, WildEarth Kids is back. Sign your class up for WildEarth schools and enjoy a special virtual field trip to Africa with interactive learning tailored for kids.
Very warm welcome to the kids from WildEarth Primary School.
We'll be dedicating the first hour of sunset safaris every Wednesday to our planet's future defenders. WildEarth, it's in your nature.
And bull elephant just stopped dead in his tracks by whatever distracted him there. It looks like he wants to get going again. Doesn't tough to say. He's got his trunk up there. I don't know if it's a morsel or a smell that's got his attention, but in any case, he'll probably get going in a minute or two again. Come down for a drink and a shower. You sometimes see elephants poring over the bones of other animals, particularly elephant. They seem to have a deep inquisitiveness about bones and will often carry the bones around and smell them and touch them and arrange them together and sometimes even cover them with vegetation. I wonder if that isn't gotten his interest, is a particular bone or something there from another elephant or a different animal. But let's give him some time to finish his investigation there. We've got other cameras and other things happening. Back we go to Namibia and Akakoya. Gosh, there's some southern oryx swimming right out into the middle of the pan. Goodness me, what a great view. Again, just a deep celebration of the fact that there's safe, open water in a desert environment. Why wouldn't you celebrate that by having a swim? That's so cool. Tim, you've asked how deep this pan is. Well, to give you some context about that oryx, if you were to, I'm a 6 foot man, and if I had to stand upright with the oryx next to me, um, where its belly is now in the water is probably going to be at the top of my legs. To give an example, so the oryx will stand next to me at the top of its shoulders, will be, I don't know, in line with my breastbone. And then if it had to stand with its head upright, it would probably be just shorter than my 6 foot tall, obviously with the horns extending far above me. But I'll give you an idea of how deep the pan is. So at its deepest point, I would say it's probably about a meter, 1.2 meters at its deepest point, which for this particular area is like an inland sea. There's not a lot of surface water here whatsoever. So apparently there's a bird with a very distinctive call busy calling in the background. Tough to say exactly what it is, but if any of you are keen birders out there and would like to share it with us, please send in what it is and we'll gladly, or I'll gladly share it with you. I don't have any audio feed from this camera into my office, mainly because it'll really disrupt the microphone that I'm talking to you through, causing some weird sounds to happen. So I can't hear, but it would be great to know if any of you out there know what bird's calling, and I'll share it with you. Group of oryx wading in to the center of the pan. So, Lady Macbeth, thank you very much for sending in your suggestion on what it is. It's a hoopoo, an African hoopoo. So that would be that whoop, 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 whoop. And I'm hoping that I don't do very good bird calls at all. So I'm hopefully that is exactly what you're hearing. And and so yeah, well done on identifying that. Thank you very, very much. The African hoopoo, fairly common bird that would probably be sitting on the floor, calling, cinnamon colored bird with a beautiful crest and a sickle shaped bill used to penetrate the floor to dig out insects below the surface. It's great to work as a team. Thank you. Louis, you've asking if I've seen any lions today, and you love the show, and that you're also just 9 years old. So well done on asking me a question, Louis. We haven't seen any lions today. No, there were some lions reported the night before last at Katai Pan, and we had a whole bunch of vultures that came to wash off or wash themselves off in the water there. So I was assuming that we had some lions close by. And then last night, where I was sitting having my dinner, we were interrupted by a pride of lions roaring so close to us. It was crazy. It was 50, 60 meters from where we were sitting around a fire having some food. It was really great to hear. It was two or three, but none of those lions have come to any of the cameras that we have available this morning. So we haven't seen any this morning. But, Louis, keep on watching because this time of the year, you definitely have lions setting up camp around these pans, and it's just a matter of time before we have lions on one of the feeds. The last time I remember seeing lion on the show was at our Africam Tau Lodge camp, where we had a mating pair of lions, and that was a couple of weeks ago. However, some of my colleagues may have seen lions when I was not hosting the show, so anything can happen, Louis, at any time. Even now, lions could run out of that bush at the back there and kill something. You just got to keep your eyes on the screen.
Are you looking to take your bond with the wild to the next level? Download our app and access in-depth chats with our naturalists and special guests. Connect and converse in real time on our Ask Me Anythings, fireside chats, hangouts, and town halls. WeChat, available on the WildEarth app. WildEarth, we are Safari.
So Louis, apart from the obvious, then it does actually take a bit of practice to identify males from females. But if you watch for long enough, what I do, I generally try and identify males from females as quickly as I can, and then we have a discussion on why it's one or the other if I don't know. And so definitely just keep on watching, and over the course of the next few days and weeks, you will absolutely get better at it. And of course, practice makes perfect, and you will progress faster than your friends, and you'll be able to get them to marvel at how good you are once you practice a little bit. And I'll also give you some practice at identifying different species from one another, like the kudu from the springbuck, for instance, or the impala from the springbuck, or the wildebeest from the zebra. That bird making a noise in the distance, a tick tick tick, is the blacksmith lapwing. Apparently, that call sounds like a blacksmith hammering one of his hammers onto an anvil. Like I said, sometimes you need to have a delicious memory in order to come up with these things. All right, but that Ellie looks like he's come back over to Jamala, or he's approached the pan. Let's go and see what he's going to do, whether he's going to drink or shower first. So we've shot back to Jamala, and we have a herd of elephant. He obviously was joined by others, It is a frozen picture, so we're probably going to be moving on fairly quickly. We've got some gremlins creeping into our system today. You'd excuse it. The weather patterns around South Africa are probably causing enough havoc at the moment. It is crazy busy from a weather pattern point of view. And of course, we seem to be getting some breakup and some freezing at the various different locations that we have. It's okay. We do bring you these shows from some of the most remote places in the world. And from time to time, gremlins do creep in. We've got a fantastic team of tech guys that jump onto these things. And I'm sure that they're furiously trying to get all the feeds back together. All right, so back to this herd of kudu that we've got coming down to drink. They've been joined by even more now, and a couple more males. Spectacularly horned bulls. The oryx that we saw, their horns go up to sort of 50 inches. It's not uncommon for kudu's horns to be longer than 60 inches. So they got some of the longest horns out here. Longer in length than the oryx that you're seeing wading into the water. Isn't that a great... The wind has died down and we now got that great silhouette of those animals against that blue sky. Such an epic picture. Gosh, another full day today. And it just went by in a 3 hours gone. We've got 2 minutes or so left of the show. And I'm sitting here blinking, thinking, where did the time go? Great way to spend, in my case, a morning. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're going to have a good day or have had a good day. And I'd like you to, well, I hope that you stay safe. I'd like you to stay safe. So thank you very, very much for your eyes on the screen. Thanks for all your questions and your comments. It's been a real pleasure hosting you today. Thank you to all our partners and to WildEarth for making this possible. Without you guys, life would be definitely poorer for it. And then thanks to all the staff that just make these shows possible. You guys are wonderful. You make a huge difference to everybody's lives. And all your hard work is definitely not unnoticed. So thank you to all of you for everything. I'll be on the show again tomorrow, which is really cool. I see these female kudu have now come this side of the pan, taking a long stroll around the pan just to see what it's like, I suppose. Why not? Lesson of the month is to be human beings, not humans' doings. At least for me anyway. That's what I'm taking from this week. Gosh, running away. Who knows what's disturbed them? So exciting. Anyway, this is the time that I say ciao. All of you out there, all the best. Goodbye. See you tomorrow.